Hey everyone, Chris Stegall here with MK Partners, joined once again by Matt Kaufman. Matt, thanks for joining once again.
Happy to be here.
And today we are going to be talking about the AppExchange. So everything from a little high-level overview of what it is and what you can expect to find there if you're brand new to the Salesforce ecosystem, all the way to if you're planning on publishing an app, what to watch out for, how to make sure that your listing really pops, and how to get the most out of the AppExchange.
Yeah. So I think most of us have a mobile device, a cell phone, if you will, and we're used to going to the store for our phone to look for apps, whether they're games or productivity apps. And Salesforce has one as well. In fact, they've had one for a long time. It's called the AppExchange. And this is where anyone who uses Salesforce can go to browse listings that have been published for apps on Salesforce. There, as far as I know, aren't really any games, but there are a lot of productivity apps that will help you do more with Salesforce. And to be honest, this is really more of an admin type of responsibility. End users should definitely go and browse and see what's available. But the ability to install one of these apps in your Salesforce is going to be limited to someone with system administrator privileges. So unlike your phone, where an end user who owns the phone can do whatever they want, when it comes to Salesforce, it's really a system administrator type of thing. But anyone in the world can get a free developer edition or a Trailhead playground and can install these in there. So you can play with it. You can also install them in sandboxes if you have access to that with administrator privileges. It is kind of a cool place to see what has been built. And sometimes before you start building something, if you are an admin or dev type, it might make sense to come and browse and see what's already been built, or if there's something that's exactly what you need even. There's a couple different types of listings on the AppExchange. I went to the first one, which is kind of like the default, which is just apps. You can see when we go to solutions by type, this apps. And there's over 4,500 apps on the AppExchange. Now, this is for the entire world with the exception of Japan. Japan has their own AppExchange, and it's in Japanese. But the rest of the world shares this one. And so 4,500 apps, over 4,500. And what you'll see on the left-hand side, we have some filters here. We can filter whether it's a paid app or a free app, or if it's discounted for nonprofits. You want to make sure that it works with your edition of Salesforce. So there are different editions. The most common one, I think, is probably Enterprise. But if you're new to Salesforce, you might be using Professional or Essential still. And so you want to make sure that the apps work for those editions. And then, of course, you can look at ratings. These are posted by typically users of the app, although sometimes they're just random people who decided to post their opinion. That's okay. But you can see the ratings for the apps as well. And then we have clouds and features and other filters and languages, of course, to make sure that it will work for you. And so you can come here and filter. You can also sort. There's a couple different sort options. Let's start at the bottom, right? So provider, that's the publisher, the name of the company that published it. Name is the name of the app. That's pretty self-explanatory. Release date is going to be when it was published on the AppExchange. Rating goes back to those ratings, the star ratings, so the reviews that people write. And then there's popularity. Popularity is a proprietary algorithm that Salesforce uses. Treat that how you will treat something that you don't really understand. But that's the default, is popularity. But it is based on a proprietary algorithm. So those are the apps. There's also Bolt solutions. So these are Lightning Bolt solutions, which was a thing that was released a couple years back. I don't know how popular they are. You can see there's only 76 Bolt solutions. But these were templates for portals and what we now call Experience Cloud. That's what these were supposed to be. And the idea was you could get up and running faster with these templates. And so they tend to be very niche, very specific use cases. But if there's one that's already out there that fits your need, at a minimum, take a look, right, before you go build something out and just see what lessons they learn in building theirs. Then we also have flow solutions. So flows are very popular. And we have, let's see how many? Fewer than they'll tell us. So 1 page worth of flow solutions, apparently. These are flows that have been packaged up and are available for install with, like, it's not a one-click install, it's a couple clicks, but it's very easy to do and definitely faster than building your own flow. Stuff like a round-robin assigner is a common request that we hear for Salesforce. So if this one meets your requirements, that might be a good one to go ahead and do. Install. Video player, that's obviously a little more complex. You'll notice that almost all of these, not all, but almost all, are provided by Salesforce Labs. You can see there, this is the logo for Salesforce Labs. Salesforce Labs are apps that have been built by Salesforce employees. They're not official products of Salesforce, but they were built by Salesforce employees, and Salesforce then published them through their Labs brand. And they typically, I think almost all of them are free. But of course, you get what you pay for. And so there's no support for them either, really. Versus ones that
probably like represent a commonly asked question of Salesforce support or something, where they said, hey, a lot of people asked for this. It's not on the real product roadmap, but we ought to build something so that we can just point them at that and say,
yeah, exactly. And round robin assigner is definitely one since the beginning, people have asked about round robin. Obviously the requirements vary from company to company. So what you call round robin, what I call round robin might be slightly different. But for that use case that matches, this will work. And yes, you're right. So when someone asks, the support rep can just say, yeah, stop asking. Like, we don't need to tell you how to do it anymore. We can just point you to this easy to install 5 clicks, let's say, flow that's pre-built, and then you can just use it. And that's what most of these types of things are here. All this stuff from Salesforce Labs are going to be things that are asked for a lot. And some employees said, you know what, I'm just going to build it. I'm tired of having to give people instructions on how to do it. Some of them are very specific. So you can see here, mortgage calculator with lead generation, business time. So, not just the time of between 2 times on the clock, but the times, from 4 p.m. on Thursday to 8 a.m. on Friday. That's really only 1 hour for most businesses. So, don't escalate those cases just because it's only been 1 hour, even though it's a full calendar day. Or at least overnight. And so that's what these are. And then, of course, we have the partner ones. So ones that are published by partners. Those are often not free, or they're sometimes a taste of something that is paid. And so you get a little taste of it for free. And so those are the flow templates, not too many of those. We also have, let's go to components next. This is a little easier. So components, these are going to be Lightning components that have been pre-built, just like the flows, pre-built, packaged up, and now you can install it. And so you don't have to hire a developer to build that Lightning component. And so we should have more of these. You can see 330. That's a much more respectable number. And they're both from Salesforce Labs as well as partners. Tableau counts as a Salesforce one, obviously. And I think this one might be Salesforce Labs as well. So even sometimes the Salesforce Labs ones look a little fancier than the non-Salesforce Labs one. But these are great to kind of avoid having to build something. When you need just that, that visual aspect, and yes, you can build it, but the time involved with building it and then maintaining it, and the frustration with trying to figure out how to get something to work sometimes is just not worth it. I recently actually tried to do the chart.js component myself. I was like, I can do this. And it was way harder than I expected. And it's well documented. And so I couldn't get it to work my way. I could get it to work their way. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get it to work their way, I might as well just use their pre-built component. Why should I start from scratch? So a lot of these, they've kind of, taken the time to do us a favor. And so it makes sense to install it rather than try to do it yourself. This one's actually an open source thing. So if you wanted to see the code, you can go see it. A lot of the Salesforce Labs ones, you can go on GitHub and see the actual code or metadata behind the package. And so if you have changes that you need, you can do it.
And theoretically, the ones where it's a flow, will that just create it as a flow in your org so that you could edit the flow the same way you would any flow you had created, or do they sort of live in a walled area that you can't edit?
They're always going to be in your org. In general, whether something is edible or not, it's going to vary depending on the type of metadata and whether it's a managed package or an unmanaged package. So in managed packages, code is typically not visible or modifiable. And so if there was a Lightning component or AppX class, you won't be able to modify that. I believe, though, a flow aspects of it you can modify, not necessarily all of it, but some of it. But if it was unmanaged, then you would be able to make a change yourself. And sometimes what these apps have in them, instead of containing the entire functionality, they contain a button that then goes and deploys the functionality as an unmanaged package. Very similar to what we do if you do a Trailhead module. It often will say, hey, go ahead and install this package. And it's kind of like that kind of process. And so that way you kind of get the best of both worlds. You're going to install an installer, and then that installer saves the necessary metadata or code to your org. Okay, I got one more, though, before we go too far on the tangent. Lightning data is the last one. And this was also a fairly new one a couple of years back. These are supposed to be data sources. You can see there's 3. So not too popular. But the idea is basically this is like an integration with a data source. So these are companies that have some type of proprietary data that they're collecting. And you can pull that into your Salesforce by installing this Lightning data app or AppExchange listing. You could do this other ways, but this takes advantage of kind of a feature that's built into Salesforce to pull in data, as opposed to an app that just has a separate integration. So it never became too popular. You can kind of tell, but those are the different types of listings just on the app side of the house, so to speak. There's also listings for consultants that we're not going to talk about today. And there's also listings for developers that we won't talk about today, and even jobs that companies can list. And so there's a whole nother side of the AppExchange beyond the apps that we think about when we think about our phones and stuff that exists all on this one big website. Today, we're just going to look at apps and things that are installed in your Salesforce. So let's come back here. We can also sort by product collections. You can see there's a bunch of different product collections. And so when Salesforce talks about products, they're talking about their different clouds. And so Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, etc. Some things to note if you're a little more technical. You may notice that there are apps for Marketing Cloud, and there are apps for Tableau. And Marketing Cloud and Tableau are really separate platforms. Tableau sometimes, not always. Pardot as well. You can see apps for Pardot. And Quip. Wow, I can keep going now that I'm looking. I'm like, oh my gosh. So there are pre-built apps for even the Salesforce products that are a little less Salesforce-like. And less platform-like than Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. And so you can see here there are Marketing Cloud apps. Again, not too many. And a lot of these are typically just adding some functionality like SMS or things that make sense logically to add to Marketing Cloud, but are just not built in. So it's kind of neat for that one. Let's go ahead and look at maybe the Quip one. And so if you're using Salesforce's Quip product, you can see there's not too many here, but basically you can kind of sync your Quip files with Dropbox, Box, etc. So that's kind of neat too. And then with industry, this is a little easier to understand. So if you're looking for a product that was specifically built for your industry, or as we'll probably look at later, more likely it's being marketed to your industry. So it's not necessarily built for it, but it's being marketed for it. You can come here and click on one of these and see apps that at least are being marketed toward your industry. The reason I say they're being marketed towards is because publishers of the AppExchange don't get to choose all of the industries that their app works for. So there's a lot of apps out there that are really agnostic. They're not for any specific industry. They're for Salesforce. But as a publisher, you don't get to choose all the different industries. And so what are they going to do? They get to choose the first 3, I think, industries that they want to focus on. Same is true for the products. And so, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work for you. You can see here's Mama Merge. Let's go ahead and look at the industries. So you can see here, we were only able to choose 3 products or clouds and 3 industries. It works for all industries. It works for almost all clouds. It's just Salesforce doesn't let you choose all of them. For other stuff like features that are required or additions, those you can choose them all. But for some of this more marketing stuff on the left-hand side, it doesn't let you choose them all. So just because something doesn't say it's for your industry doesn't mean that your industry can't use it. You probably can still use it.
Yeah. And conversely, just because something says it is for your industry, it might just be that it works with everything, and they've made a few different listings so they could have it show up in every industry filter. And so it says,
you can do that. Yeah. So there are rules in place to kind of prevent someone from flooding the AppExchange. And there's also costs. So if you're publishing a paid app, there's a cost to do so. Actually, I believe there's a cost now to publish a free app too. There didn't used to be, but now there is. And so that kind of is Salesforce's technique to prevent outdated stuff from being on the AppExchange, right? If you look at Apple and their store, they take a very involved approach. They, each listing has to go through a pretty rigorous publishing process, both from a technical perspective as well as a marketing one. Google does the opposite. They say, well, we're just going to let the people decide what's valuable and let good stuff float up and bad stuff sink. And Salesforce has kind of got a little of that, but a kind of a little middle approach. There is a security review that apps have to go through and then go through again periodically to kind of like authorize. And there are somewhat strict requirements on what you can put in a listing. You can't have the word Salesforce as your listing, right? You're supposed to have your product name and things like that. And they do occasionally do these audits where they'll say, hey, we read your listing and you're breaking our partner marketing guidelines. And they'll go through that. So it's a little bit of Apple, a little bit of Google in terms of the approach. They also update the website fairly often, about once a year or so. There's some type of update to the look and feel or to how you can categorize or the number of images, things like that. So as a publisher, you kind of have to pay attention. There's usually some type of notification, but you have to pay attention. And that's actually a great way as a consumer, whether you're a Salesforce administrator or an end user, to kind of know, is this publisher, is this business taking this seriously? Is this something that they've committed to? Because just because they publish something doesn't mean that they're actively doing updates or providing support, things like that. And so one of the things we want to talk about today is kind of taking a step back and looking at these listings and figure out, well, what's good, what's a good sign, what's a bad sign, things like that. Now, the ones that are up at the top are sponsored, and so those are probably going to be better listings, right? So these are companies that are paying Salesforce to have their listing at the top of the AppExchange. You can see these tiles look great, and they probably have people ready to pick up the phone when you call because they're advertising, right? But if we come back to solutions by type and go to apps, and we sort, instead of by popularity, let's sort by release date. And so now we're going to see things that are newer. And of course, things that are newer, these people are probably less familiar with Salesforce and less familiar with the AppExchange for sure. They might be familiar with Salesforce, but they're definitely less familiar with AppExchange. And so they may not be following some of the best practices that we've kind of worked out over the years, or that Salesforce recommends. And so we're going to kind of pick on some of these listings, not because there's anything wrong with them, but because they could benefit from maybe improving a little. We're not going to look at the actual products, only the listing itself from a marketing perspective, right? So this is in no way saying whether the product is good or bad. It's just, hey, here are some things that I would improve if I were the person who were in charge of publishing that listing. So these are the newest apps. Today is November 1st, and 2023. And these are the newest apps according to the AppExchange. And so the first thing you'll notice, looking at the left-hand corner here, is that is a little hard to read. I can read it, but it is not great. And I get it, right? Image sizes differ on every website. But Salesforce does tell all the publishers, hey, this is what we recommend. And this is what happens when you don't follow their recommendation. It does not look good. Although, to be fair, even this labs one here doesn't look great. It looks like
I thought that might not be an official Salesforce Labs one, but it looks like it is. So it's just a filler tile they have.
It's Salesforce Labs. Yeah, my guess is they grabbed the wrong image. The tile sizes used to be different. They used to be wider. And so that's what I'm thinking happened with this cuneiform one. I think they have it for the older tile size and not the new one.
Yeah.
And maybe they, just had a delay in publishing. Often there's delays with security reviews and things like that. So that could be it. You can see here.
It is like one of those things that I have learned from working with the AppExchange, that there's not a great system to show you, here's all the instances of the media you've uploaded and where it's going to appear.
Yeah.
So if I have just launched my app, I go to the AppExchange, I'm not going to show up on the most popular list because it's brand new. So I type the name of my app in the search bar up there, and the search results view is completely different than this tile view.
Yeah, you're right. So the search results is still the old, is a different view. Actually, well, let's try to get it up. Yeah, so there's this type of tile, and there's this type of tile. Let's see if I can get there. And sometimes we even see a different one. So there's the square, which is the old one. And then there's the new one, which we just saw a second ago. Let's go ahead and look at this one. This is the newer one, which is just really the logo. And so, yeah, unfortunately, you're going to show up in different places in different ways. I think over time that will get fixed. But for the time being, what we typically do is publish at night or the weekend. And that way, when you make a mistake, and you're guaranteed to almost make a mistake, especially your first time, no one really sees it, and you can go and fix it. You have time. There's no stress. You can imagine publishing this at like 9 a.m. on a Monday, and then your boss looks at it and it's like, oh no, to have to go and edit images, in a rush and then publish them. The publishing process is not immediate. If you upload a new image, it is not going to immediately be there, and you're going to be refreshing, hoping that it gets there, but it could be 5 minutes. It might be longer. And so, yeah, typically we're going to be publishing these things when people are less likely to be looking, which is hard to do because, like I said, this is a global website. So it might have to be Friday night.
Yeah.
And if any admin is installing your apps Friday night, you're just out of luck. But yeah, so getting the dimensions right and the resolution right, I think, is also important. You can see from this one here, the connecting Salesforce dots, that it looks a little blurry, and especially if you're watching the video, it probably looks even more blurry. But it looks blurry to me, and I have my glasses on, and so something's wrong with the resolution or something like that. Some of these other ones, this one here, very crisp claims, very crisp. Evro Trust, very crisp. Ringover. There's a lot of crisp ones where they got the resolution right. They got the shape right, the dimensions. My suggestion would be put something in the image that tells us what you do. And so we have no affiliation with Dryad. I never heard of it before today. But here you can see Dryad, tax receipting for Canadian nonprofits. I know exactly what they do. And if I were in Canada and a nonprofit, I would click on that. Now, again, I don't know anything about Dryad. If they actually do other stuff, maybe that's not the best style, right? If they do general receipts or other stuff for Canadian nonprofits, whatever, then you might want to do something a little more generic or have multiple listings like you had suggested. But if that is literally all they do and they are the best at it, that is a great tile, right? Same is true if we come down here, this recognition one. I know exactly what they do. I don't know about the app. I don't know if it's a native app or a hybrid app. We didn't really talk about that. But the apps that you can install, they often have some aspect that lives within Salesforce. And sometimes they also have an aspect that lives outside of Salesforce. So a native app means it lives entirely inside Salesforce. Everything in that app is in Salesforce. It does not talk to any outside servers. And a hybrid app will talk to an outside server. An example might be, some type of app that pulls in Google Analytics, let's just say, from your website. Obviously, that can't live just in Salesforce because Google Analytics lives outside of Salesforce. So that can't be native. It has to be hybrid. But if you published just something that is an invoice object, right? A single object, it's just an invoice, and that's it. 15 fields. That technically is an app, and it's a native app. So you'll notice a lot of these listings do not tell you what they do. And it really, you only have so much time before someone's going to move on past your tile. So, cool logo. Am I going to click on it? No, I'm looking for something else. I'm not looking for logos. We also have the other risk where you want to tell so much about your app that the font's too small. Now I'm looking at this on my big monitor, right? You're probably at home watching this on a smaller screen, unless you're projecting our video on your TV. It's a great date night material to watch Chris and Matt talk about the AppExchange. But I'm looking at this on my big monitor and I can't read that text. It says, obviously the bigger text I can read, I have my glasses on, IoT smart connected scanning solution. Now, if I don't lean forward, I see the groundbreaking. It looks like easy, but I actually can't make it out. But I figured out it says easy. Easy way to capture your documents at the edge of your mission critical business processes. But I'm doing that thing that you can watch those videos about how the brain works, where if you see the first letter and you see the last letter, you kind of figure out the word. That's what I'm doing. I'm not actually able to read each of those letters. They kind of blur together. And I don't want to lean forward because then you'll see my face huge in the camera here. So we're going to name this video Matt Does an Eye Chart.
I have to lean forward to read it. I can't figure it out.
But that's a huge risk, and finding the right balance between explaining what your app does succinctly versus having too much small text on the screen is really hard, especially since there are different form factors, right? I'm using a big monitor. Other people might have smaller monitors or a phone or a tablet. And so when we publish our apps, not only do we try to do it at night so that no one sees what we're doing, we then have to immediately go and look, how does this look on my phone? How does this look on a tablet? How does this look on my small laptop versus my big desktop screen? And hope that we can get it right for 80% of the people. So let's go ahead and click on one of these. And again, we have no affiliation with any of these. Maybe I'll click on the Salesforce Labs one just to kind of be fair.
If you kept scrolling down, there is one that has such an interesting tile icon. I couldn't help but hover. You may need to sort by
yes, I'll sort by release date. That's what we were doing. And let's see what happens.
I think it's on the next show more page.
Okay, show more. Okay, so let me talk about the show more too. When you go to the AppExchange, you're going to see the first X tiles. It's like 32 or something like that. And then you have to click show more to see more. And from a publisher's perspective, like this is the equivalent of going to the next page of your search results, right? You really want to be at the top page because people do not click show more. If they do, they have to sit there and wait. And then they get the second list. And the second list, unlike search results, where you actually go to a new page and see just that second page, we still are on the first page. And we just see more now. And so, again, the odds of someone scrolling down is small. And the odds of them scrolling down and hitting show more again and hitting show more again and going through 4,000 listings is so small. So it's really important to work on listings and try to get to the top. So which one did you want me to click on?
That dynamic user icon tile with the moon and the tree was so vague. And I was like, I need to hover over that and at least find out what a dynamic user icon is.
Yeah, it is a very beautiful tile. I like it, but you're right. I have no idea. Dynamic user icon sounds like the little icon, the avatar, changes.
Yeah, you would think. And
something, it does say something about, so when we hover over something, you get to see a kind of a sneak peek, just like hovers inside Salesforce, right? So we get a sneak peek of this record, and we can see who the publisher is and their full tagline, that it's lightning ready, which at this point, all apps should be lightning ready. So that's kind of silly that we're still putting that there. Enterprise and up, we talked about the edition. So this one apparently is not supported in Professional Edition. It was released earlier this year and has 0 ratings. Let's check it out. And again, no affiliation, and we apologize for picking on you. Hopefully this is actually good marketing and not bad. So there's a small description here. That does not look like the maximum characters allowed, is my guess. And so I would always make the recommendation, maximize your text. Use every character you can to take advantage of the screen space.
And one of the things in terms of character use that we didn't mention, but we kind of like tangentially got close to, that they're doing correctly here is in the title. You'll see a lot of apps or a lot of publishers just put the brand name there, but they include here a little description of what the app does.
Yeah.
So that on hover, we saw that. And more importantly, when you do a search, and so you don't get the tile view, but you just get those logo views.
Yeah.
I know I search for document generation all the time, so I know that one by heart. If you search document generation, you will see that almost every single product that shows up on those search results in their title says document generation tool, generate documents from Salesforce. They all use that trick to like drive the SEO there.
Right. And I won't even call it a trick. It's a best practice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just the way that works. The name of an app is not what the app does. It's very rare that the name of an app is what the app does. Typically, the name of the app is something clever. And until it becomes a brand name that everyone recognizes, you need to have this little subtitle that tells people more about it. So we have that full title. We have this little tagline. And then we have a small short description. Down here, we can see the images or assets that have been uploaded. And these are crisp, so this is great. I see some icons there. We can actually expand it. Beautiful icons, yeah. And we can go through all of them. Now, Salesforce says that every time a customer or a visitor to the site looks at your images, that boosts your popularity rating a little. Whether that's true or not, I can't say. It looks like they don't have that many. I think you can have up to 12. So I would recommend having more. And here we can see what it is. It's a set of 9 activity icons that provide you with the necessary information at a glance. So I think these icons here are what this app is.
Yeah.
Which explains why it's a free app, because it's just icons. And it looks like it's a partner. It's a consulting partner. So this is probably just an app that they use in their consulting engagements. It saves them time and it makes their results look a lot cooler. So you can see that information about the provider. They're based in Helsinki, Finland, so that's really cool. We can look, again, no reviews, but if there were reviews, you'd see them here. And then more details. So I like looking at more details. I'm into the guts, the behind the scenes stuff. And so we can see here, this is always interesting. Chris, you and I were talking about this earlier. The first release was September 27th, 2023. But the latest release was before that. And so what we have kind of determined by doing some non-scientific research is that this latest release is actually the package release date. So it's when the developer went and uploaded that package to the AppExchange versus the first release is when it was published on the AppExchange. And so really the latest release for an app that only has one release, it'll always be before the publishing date, because after you package it, then you get your security review, then you get your listing approval. And only after they have a second release or a third release will this date kind of be later than the first release. So it's not a mistake. It does make sense. One has to do with the publishing and one has to do with the packaging.
It is actually interesting in that security column on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
The last review was a year before the last release, and they actually reviewed 1.7, but now we're on 1.8. So the current version is unreviewed. Yes,
that's true. Historically, paid apps were reviewed annually. This is not a paid app. Some people may also be familiar with some of the restructuring, reorganization, whatever you want to call it, that went on this year at Salesforce. As a result, that team does not have as much bandwidth as they used to. Plus, every year there's more apps.
Yeah.
And so the security review process has changed somewhat this year. There's like a attestation that now publishers do. And then, the team at Salesforce is doing their best to try to keep up with what they can. One of the things I like to look at is what's actually in the app before I install. So this one says there's only 2 custom objects, which is like, okay, so that's small, that's good, not a big footprint. When you go to install, it'll also present you with any call outs. So if this app talks to another server outside of Salesforce, it'll make you say, yes, I approve speaking to this website, to that website, and so on and so forth. And that's really important to pay attention to. And then all those other details that we talked about before are showing here. Now, obviously, this works with every cloud that's true platform. So Health Cloud, Financial Services Cloud, not Marketing Cloud, but all the true platform clouds. But again, you only get to pick 3. So that's that. And then, of course, I would recommend to this publisher, try to get some ratings. If they really are installing it at all their clients, it shouldn't be that hard. But you're 100% correct. The logo is beautiful for that tile, but it did not tell us really anything about the app. And maybe that doesn't matter for them. It is a free app. So a free app, they can't really provide too much support. They're probably just using it with their consulting clients. So that's okay. Oh, let's go ahead and look at another one real quick. In fact, maybe we'll look at ours. Let's butcher ourselves. So here's Mama Merge. And so we don't have enough reviews right away. That's my first feedback to us is, hey, this app's been out for more than a year. You have more than 15 customers. Why do you only have 15 reviews? That's great feedback, Matt. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You can see that this is a new industry, that option that recently became available this year, horizontal product. So in the past, you had to choose from an actual industry, and now they let you say, no, it's for any industry, but also for these industries. And the problem is, if you say horizontal product and you don't pick an industry, when you go to one of the industry collections, you're not going to see the horizontal ones. You're only going to see the ones that are specifically for that industry. So you got to kind of choose them all. Down below, you can see we do have more than 6 of these assets. And then, of course, we have a video. My feedback is get a newer video. I happen to know that this video is outdated. But it is important to have a video because Salesforce says that every time someone watches your video, as well as every time someone clicks on one of these assets, that does bolster your popularity.
Yeah.
So you want to have that.
And my AppExchange experience note would be, if you have videos, it's going to default them to the very front of this slideshow. So you really don't, like, one video, great, 2 videos, you're pushing it, but people can still see that there's more content there.
Yeah.
If you have 3 videos, most people aren't going to click to watch a video, and they're not going to know, oh, if I just scroll this carousel a little bit, I'll get to the slideshow. So you really don't want to overdo it video-wise either.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the video tile here in the new look and feel in the AppExchange is this generic tile. Whereas in the past, it actually was a thumbnail. But now you don't get that. And so I think it's a feature request. But yeah, this generic one, it just doesn't tell you anything about the product. So you're right. Having one is great. The other thing you can do, let's see. Oh, it's not there. I think it's under more details. Here, you can have resources. So these are additional assets that you've uploaded. My feedback to us would be, I think you could have 12 resources or 15 resources. Why aren't you filling it up? And we really should. And these can be links. They don't have to be actual files. They can be links. So you can see we have links to our knowledge base and recipes. But you want to, at the minimum, support your customers, right? But really, this is a way to show that you have a lot of support. So you want to upload more. So we should do that. Yeah, this is filled in at least. So that's good. No limits. I like that. So that means that when we install this app, it won't count towards our limits. And if you're in a professional edition org, that's critical that it doesn't count towards limits. Being a native app, that's great too. Again, that means that we don't do call outs or not sharing your data outside of Salesforce. And then, of course, supporting the features that are a little tricky is always a good thing.
Did you click on that little eye next to supported features and we can't see the pop-up? Okay.
There we go. I didn't click on it, but this just tells you more about it.
Yeah.
I think all of the help bubbles can be clicked on.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had clicked it and I missed it. Like, because sometimes when I'm sharing a screen, it doesn't show us the popovers like that.
The other thing that I wanted to show, besides these highlights, which you can also fill in, and I think it's okay, but if you'll notice, big, medium, small, we probably should get some more text in here, right? So you want to maximize the text that you have on your listing so that when someone searches for that word, you're more likely to show up. Pledge 1%. If you are a Salesforce partner and you are not participating in Pledge 1%, shame on you. All the partners should. It's not hard to do. And then the other thing that I highly recommend is when you have multiple listings, you want them to all show up down here. This is a great way to upsell from one client to a client, one app to another. So make sure they're all linked to the same publishing org. And some partners, like you mentioned earlier, will publish the same app in multiple ways and have DocGen for financial services versus document generation for Health Cloud and stuff like that. Whether that's worth it or not is a whole nother conversation. But either way, you want to just make sure that they show up here. And again, this does make it look like you're a real company and you're supporting your customers with all sorts of different types of functionality.
And interestingly, you and I have different apps in that more from this provider section.
Yeah, so there are cookies on the AppExchange, and if you're logged in, your experience will be slightly different than if you're not logged in. If you visit multiple times when you're not logged in, it still knows that it's you, unless you clear your cookies or use an incognito window or private browser. So it will kind of vary from person to person. There could also be some differences based on like where you are in the world and stuff like that. But in this case, I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So high level, that's what we want to talk about today. If you haven't been to the AppExchange, please go take a look. If you haven't looked at our listing, take a look and let us know what you think. I pointed out some easy stuff, but you might be able to find some more interesting stuff that we can improve upon.
Yeah. Do let us know in the comments here on this video, as opposed to leaving a review on the AppExchange saying,
Yes,
"Oh, this listing is 2 stars. I would fix this." Because
yeah,
but if you do use the app, please do leave a review because those are helpful.
yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you, Matt, for walking us through that. Thank you, everybody, once again for watching. Do be sure to like and subscribe. And as Matt said, check out both our apps on the AppExchange, but also get comfortable with the AppExchange. It's a great first stop, definitely before you build something on your own. As we mentioned, just to see what else is out there, even if it's just to estimate how much money you'll be saving the company by building it yourself. If it turns out it's out there, but it's $150,000 a year, that is a great case to go to your higher ups and say, yeah, I can build this and I'm going to save us 50 grand and it's all I will do. And you will pay me $100,000 to do it. And we're going to save a bunch of money. But yeah, Matt, really valuable to have your insight, decades of experience on the AppExchange and seeing how it's changed and evolved and really still is the one first stop for improvements to Salesforce orgs.
Yep.
So thanks again. And
you.
everybody, we'll see you next time.